Alright, what's going on, everybody? My name is Henry Confidential, and just because that I've deterred my channel away from talking about movies recently does not mean that I have not been watching movies. In fact, in 2019, I've seen less movies than I saw in 2018, but I still saw 82 movies, so therefore, I have a top 10 of the year. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about my 10 through 4, and then I'm going to talk about some honorable mentions. And honestly, I really love 2019, so I'm actually going to talk about my 11 through 25, but I'm going to go through them quickly. It's not going to be reviews. I'm just going to talk general feelings on these movies and why they made my list, and that's also what I'm going to do for the top 10, because honestly, I don't need this video to be very long, because this is my first movie video in a long time. So let's just jump right into it. Alright, so number 10, this is a movie that was floating between 10 and 11 because there's another movie at number 11 that got me very emotional as well, and I was debating back and forth which one should choose, but I chose Noah Baumbach's Marriage Story. This is Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson just going toe-to-toe back and forth, going through a divorce, how they want to handle being parents, and just the process of the divorce itself with Ray Liotta and Laura Dern as their lawyers. And I just feel like the movie's just raw and really sincere about the process of going through a divorce and how both characters are in the right in situations, in the wrong in situations, are placing blame in situations and refusing to take the blame for themselves. So I just think it's very beautiful. It's very heart-wrenching at times, and honestly, I really do believe it's going to be a rewatchable movie just for the fact that as I grew up as a man, that I get into relationships and stuff, and I really feel like there's a chance I can relate to it, even not the divorce aspect of it, but the relationship aspect and the true love that these two characters really convey for each other. At number 9, this is a movie that just stayed strong in my top 10 the entire time once I saw it over the summer, and that is Toy Story 4. This is a movie that once the trailers came out, I wasn't intrigued, but Pixar does a really great job of really not showing you anything. Honestly, Disney does that as a whole, not showing you anything, but I was not intrigued in seeing this movie. I like Toy Story 3 a lot, but I don't love it as much because I do feel like it's a little cheap at times with its emotion, but Toy Story 4, I really think it earned everything. I kind of felt like it took a step back and really earned its emotion with Woody as a character and his redemption, being the lead, Andy's toy, being Bonnie's number one toy now, and just that, battle with that. And it also brings back Bo Peep, which now she has a kind of like a Sarah Connor, Ellen Ripley characteristic to herself, where she's kind of a badass, and it's just a lot of fun to see the action set piece based on toys and all that type of stuff. So it has the emotion, has the comedy, and has a kind of a twist on the Toy Story aspect of how they're going to handle things and, how they're going to go about the villain and all that type of stuff. So if you haven't seen Toy Story 4 because of whatever reason you thought that, you didn't need another Toy Story, or you thought Toy Story 3 was the perfect end, or you just don't like animated movies, I do think that this is a good movie for you to check out. At number 8, this is one of my biggest surprises, not because of what I thought going into it, because I saw the trailers and I was in love, I was ready to go in for it, but the fact that based on all the movies around it, that this is my number one horror movie of 2019, and that is Ready or Not. It's a horror comedy, granted, and it's not as horrific as some of the other movies that are close within my 11 to 25, but Ready or Not is just a fun movie that has horrific moments to it. It's about a couple getting married, and Samara Weaving is the lead character. She's getting married into this family that is rich based on the gaming industry, and the tradition of the wedding night is that the newest member of the family is going to play a game. They're going to draw a card, and whatever game is chosen, they're going to play it. And unfortunately, this has only happened in one other instance based on what you see at the very beginning of the movie. If you draw the hide and seek card, that means that you are going to be sacrificed, essentially. So that's the overall premise. I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot of relationships within this movie of the mom, the grandma, the dad, the brother, the couple itself. There's just so many, the butler. There's a lot of characters in this movie that plays a part that's just fun, funny, and very engaging at all times. It's a very short movie, so it does exactly what it needs to do in its time, and I really think that these directors, if they handle movies the way that they handle this one, that they're going to do a great job in their future. And Samara Weaving proved that she's more than just the dumb underage, not underage girlfriend, but really young girlfriend from 3 Billboards, and she can really lead a movie. And yes, granted, she does look like Margot Robbie a lot in this movie, but on repeat viewings you get over that because she just really handles the movie as a lead. And Adam Brody as the brother or brother-in-law, depending on which aspect you want to go at, he does a really great job of towing the line of good and bad, how he's going to handle his responsibility and all of this type of stuff. So Ready or Not, great movie. I really had a lot of fun. Number 7, this is an actor that I truly love, and whenever you see me post lists, you see me post movies from him all the time, but everyone else, not so much. That is Adam Sandler in the Safdie Brothers' Uncut Gems. Adam Sandler plays Howard, who is a a jeweler in a sorts, and he's kind of a shady person. He's always doing these side deals. He's always trying to do whatever he can to make some money. But if you really look at the movie, you see that the character's doing well off. He's got a very attractive wife. He's got kids. He's living a good life. He's got a side girl who works for him and all that stuff. So he's really doing well for himself, but he just wants more. And I kind of think that that's the underlying point of this movie, is that no matter what you are in your life or how you're going about your life, at times you're going to want more, and there's a chance that you could ruin your life doing so. It's a combination premise where you don't want to settle in life, but also you don't want to go overboard in ruining your life trying to achieve more. And Kevin Garnett has a supportive performance, and if you don't know who Kevin Garnett is, he's a professional basketball player, or was. He's retired now, and it's based on the 2012 season and everything that goes on there. And personally, I love basketball, but I don't remember basketball, so there's a lot of basketball scenes in the movie where he's doing bets on games, and I don't remember exactly how they turn out. So it definitely has that thrilling moment, and you're really engaged on everything that's going to happen, and you're kind of nervous a lot of time, nerve-wracking. This movie is well directed. It's quick. It has a lot of great visuals at the very beginning and throughout, that it just shows that the Safdie brothers, didn't just have a one-hit wonder with Good Time. And it also shows that Adam Sandler can really bring the dramatic chops whenever he wants to. It's something that it's, once in a blue moon, but whenever he does a great job. So Uncut Gems, don't just steer away from it because it's Adam Sandler. Don't just think that this movie is going to be boring because it's about jewelry, because it's way more than that. At number 6, we have one of my favorite directors of all time, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is a movie that when I first saw it, I was like, okay, I really like that movie, but I don't know how to feel about it. And if you've seen the movie, you know exactly why. There are things that go about it. It's, almost 3 hours long. It's pretty much plotless, and it has a twist/plot diversion that you kind of are unexpected at the first time. So on repeat viewings, it's fun to watch. The pacing is really great in the movie. It really doesn't affect you. You don't really feel the 3-hour runtime almost at all. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio just dynamic as a 1-2 back and forth. Margot Robbie, she doesn't have as much screen time as you would expect, so I think that's important to know going in. The story is not about her, but her character as Sharon Tate is in the movie, and she does have an important part, but the movie doesn't rely on her. So if you want to think about that sensitively, or if you also want to think about that just going in on like, I don't really care about that storyline, just don't think about, the movie's not about her. The movie is about Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio's struggle as an actor. He's got the talent to be a #1 star in Hollywood, but also he just, for some reason, just hasn't gotten there. He's always been doing TV shows. He's always been the heavy. He's kind of been the bad guy. So it's not something that really just stands out as a leading man. And Brad Pitt plays a stunt double. And there's a part in this movie where their dynamic is just so tight. They're like best friends, but also it's clear that he works for him. That premise there as well. And I just think that's very interesting to see the dynamic between the two. So this is a movie that it's Quentin Tarantino. It's got all the clever writing and dialogue that you would expect. It's hilarious. There's some tense moments. There's a scene in this movie that really, really, really makes me want to see a horror-directed Tarantino movie. Just the tension that he's able to draw within this just makes it very horrific and tense and thrilling, and it definitely makes me want to see a horror movie from Quentin Tarantino. All right, time to get into the top 5. 2 more movies before I start talking about honorable mentions. Similar to Ready or Not, this is a movie that I'm surprised that just stuck into my top 10 the entire time, just based on how it doesn't really have as same themes as the rest of the movies in this. Also, I wasn't as high up going into it. I had it on my anticipated movie list, but I just, once the trailer came out and once just the hype away from it got away, I just wasn't sure. But that is Rian Johnson's Knives Out. This is a movie that I've seen twice, and this is a movie that's just similar to Ready or Not. It's got the pacing that's exactly what you need. It's not too long. It's got a very engaging story. There's moments in this movie that kind of deters from what you would expect from a murder mystery movie, and it really sets up the plot early, middle, and towards the end just exactly how you would want it, and to be very unique with this type of story, because there's not too many murder mysteries out there, but there's also enough murder mysteries to where the concept can be very stale, especially if it's generic and very Clue-like. It's got elements to that in this movie, but I do not think that this is a Clue movie by any stretch of the imagination. Ana de Armas does a fantastic job leading this movie. Similar to Samara Weaving, she's not just an AI hologram from Blade Runner 2049. She's fantastic. She's able to lead this movie. Christopher Plummer as the grandpa or father to a lot of these characters. This movie does a great job. It just shows that the older you get, you can still have it if you have just true talent with acting, and you have a lot of supporting characters. You have Toni Collette, was great in Hereditary the year before. It shows that she still got it, and that Hereditary is not a one-hit wonder. You got Chris Evans, Keith Stanfield, you got Michael Shannon, you got Don Johnson, and you have Jamie Lee Curtis and Michael Shannon just do a fantastic job. Knives Out is a movie that I know that it's going to be on rewatch all the time. It's a movie that I'm going to love and I'm going to see in the future. And obviously, the last part I want to talk about, Daniel Craig. He's just fantastic in this movie. I don't know what kind of Oscar buzz he's going to get, whether it's a lead or supporting, because he kind of teeters the line of both. I truly believe that he deserves it, and he does a fantastic job. He has this accent throughout the entire movie that is a little weird, but you just buy it. You just buy it. It just, I don't know if it's, if it's one of those wink at the cameras like, hey, this is what I'm doing. I know exactly what I'm in, and this is what I'm going to go about, or whatever. But Daniel Craig does a fantastic job. Him and Ana de Armas just really lead this movie, and it just truly makes me want to put it in the future when I buy this, and I'm going to see it. All right, so my final movie I'm going to talk about before I start digging into my honorable mentions, and that is Bong Joon-ho's Parasite. This is a movie that, let's just get it out of the way right now. It's talked about. It's going to be on everyone's top 10s of the year and potentially start being talked about top 10s of the decade. And it's worth it. This movie is fantastic. It's a foreign language movie, so obviously don't let that scare you going in. It's about classism. Don't let that scare you. It's not boring. It's very thrilling. Bong Joon-ho does a fantastic job directing this movie, and all the actors involved are terrific. You really believe that they're digging into the characters, because in a sense there's a lot of scenes in this movie where the actors are acting with their characters, and you truly believe that they're just doing a fantastic job. There's a lot of improv in the movie, not like improv is the actors doing it, but you can tell that the characters within the movie are doing improv. They're really thinking on their feet. They're very clever. So it just shows that despite where you are in class does not truly define you who you are as a person. You have a lot of potential. You can truly wing it. It's like when you go into a job interview and your resume just doesn't stand out to someone else, but you just know deep down you're qualified. A movie like this shows that if you just find a way to figure out to get yourself in the position to really rise to the top, that you can do so. And there are some not so great motives in this movie, and there are some dirty and sneaky things that happen in this movie that aren't necessarily how you would want to approach life in general, but this movie does show that the difference between class is, it's there. All right, so before I get into my top 3 of 2019, I really want to just quickly talk about my 11 through 25. I'm going to go from 25 to 11. I'm just going to talk about them real quick, pop them up on the screen, and that's what it's going to be. So I'm going to be looking at my phone. It's going to be a little sketchy, but here we go. At number 25, we have Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. I really, truly believe that everyone in this movie brought it, and I don't know if it's going to be as rewatchable. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to rewatch it yet, so it could jump up and it could jump down, but as right now, 25. But luckily, I saw it on the big screen. At number 24, we have Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. Everything that you hear talked about, it's sweet, it's funny, it's satirical, it does everything that you expect. Number 23 is a huge surprise for me. It's a movie that I've seen a lot of people crap on, but I thought it was great. I think Zac Efron does a fantastic job, and that is Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. Number 22, we have The Lighthouse. This was a movie that was way high up there, but as soon as time passed, I'm just really sad that I didn't get a chance to rewatch it to keep it up there. So 22, I still think it deserves to be my 25. At number 21, we have Gloria Bell, an A24 movie led by Julianne Moore. I truly think this is heartwarming. There's some editing things in this movie that are weird, and I just don't know if it's going to stick with me. I don't know if it was a choice or however, but it just went down a little bit, but it was high up for a while. Number 20, we have Booksmart, a movie that I'm glad I got to rewatch because it was a little lower by the time the just more movies passed it, but once I saw it again, it is truly funny. It is truly relatable, not just from the, I remember what it was being like in high school, and I was a smart person, and I also played sports, and I kind of just hung out with different demographics, and I just know that I can truly feel for the two leads, where it's like, man, we did all this, but we didn't have fun. So it is actually fun itself. Number 19, we have Fighting with My Family. I grew up loving wrestling. I grew out of it as an adult, and I'm not saying that, I'm better than wrestling, but I just grew out of it, so I haven't watched it. But when I watched this movie, it really brought me back to my childhood, and it really made me happy to see this movie. At number 18, we have How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World. This is a movie that's just super sweet. I love the entire trilogy. I'm debating if number 2 or number 3 is my favorite, and, on rewatch, I just love Toothless. I love the Light Fury. I just love Hiccup as a character and everything. This relationship, it's a him and his dog type of story, and it just really gets me. At number 17, this is a movie that unfortunately went down on multiple rewatches, and that is Long Shot. This is a movie that I kind of relate to Seth Rogen's character, where it's just at the end of the day, he wants to just do his own thing. He wants to just be everything that he is deep down, but he just can't figure out a way to not say stupid stuff and to not just be true realistic and tell it like it is, and it really does affect him in his life, his relationships, his job, and all that type of stuff. So I really relate to that, but I do think that the movie, on rewatches wasn't as funny, and I related to it, but I think that, the other ones just take it up just a notch. At number 16, we have Ford vs. Ferrari. This is a movie that just, man, this was just dynamic and epic and fun, and I love the racing. I love Christian Bale and Matt Damon's characteristic back and forth, and how they handle things. The way James Mangold shot the racing is just beautiful, and this movie's a lot of fun. At number 15, we have The Peanut Butter Falcon. This is a sweet story. Shia LaBeouf is honestly, I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite actors, but he's an actor that I just love almost every movie that he's in. I just really feel for this story. It's really sweet. I truly think that the end of the movie is, it's meant to be over the top and cartoonish, and I think that just knocks it down for me a little bit on just at the end of the day how I feel about the movie. But overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I really liked the way that they handled Zach and his Down syndrome. disorder and how they really did they weren't afraid to go there with characters saying bad things, but they also weren't afraid there with the character just accepting who he is, and how Shia LaBeouf accepted him who he was, because whenever he looked down on him as just like extra baggage, it wasn't because of that he had Down syndrome. It was just because, hey, I'm on the run and you're just bringing me down in a sense. But they figured out a way to make both of them, work off each other, and just the comedy and the humor was just there throughout. So I really like that movie. At number 14, 13, and 12, these are my horror movies. These are movies that just, they're in my top 10 for the longest. I really thought that my top 10 was just going to be filled with horror, but once I just started seeing some of these other movies, they just got nudged out just a little bit. So I'm going to quickly touch on them. At 14, we have Us. Hilarious, fun, thrilling. Jordan Peele really showed that Get Out was just not a one-hit wonder. On rewatch of Get Out, it is my favorite of the two, but for a while I thought Us was going to be my favorite. 13, we have another director's second feature, and that is Midsommar from Ari Aster. This movie, when the first time I saw it, similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I had no idea how I felt outside of the movie. But once I saw it multiple times afterwards, I'm like, yep, I'm all in for this. I truly get what they're going for. There are some scenes towards the end with some of the side characters that I'm like, I think that these might be elaborated more on the director's cut, the 3-hour cut, I think it's like 20, 30 minutes longer, and I really think that, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that those scenes will be explained, but for now, 13 is a really good spot for it. Number 12, I got It Chapter 2. Pennywise is he has more to do in this movie with ironically less screen time, and I really think that I really love how they handled the adult characters in this movie. I hear a lot of people talking, they're like, oh, the adults, they're not as interesting, it's not as scary. I don't know what they're talking about. I just love the dynamic. You got James McAvoy, Jessica Chastain, Bill Hader, and friends, and they just do a really good job feeding off each other. They really handle the way that the child characters portrayed their characters of Bill, Richie, Beverly, Ben, Stanley, Eddie, and Mike, and I really think that it's going to be one of those movies that I haven't got a chance to buy yet, but when I watch 1 and 2 back to back, I'm just going to have a great time, and I'm going to love it. And at my number 11, this is a movie that honestly I was not planning on watching at all. It just wasn't on my radar, but I had a woman that I'm just friends with that I play cornhole with. Check out those videos on my channel. I play cornhole with, and she recommended this movie to me, and I went and watched it, and I loved it. I cried about 3 times, and this is the one that was fighting with Marriage Story for that 10 spot, and I just think that the way that Marriage Story was directed and written was just a little tighter, and that's the only reason I gave that the nudge. But this movie is The Art of Racing in the Rain, and I know that if you've seen the movie, you might have feelings. I've only seen a few reviews on this from friends on my Letterboxd, and I think that their reviews are just kind of lame. But if you haven't seen the movie and you avoid it because you think it's just another dog movie, truly, it's not. This is a movie that, if you've ever seen About Time, it's not specifically About Time, but it's similar in that regard. If you've seen that movie, the first half hour, 45 minutes, maybe even hour, you are expecting this movie to be what it is, what the trailers sold it as. But once it hits that second half turn, it is not. It is a completely different movie, and wow, it is a gut punch. I'm telling you, I cried about 6 times in this movie, spread out throughout. It's not one of those where I just cried at the very end and it was just cheap, oh god, the dog dies type of deal. It is not that. This movie is actually really sweet, and I truly, truly believe Milo Ventimiglia, however you say his name, Milesia, I don't know, Milo. I truly believe that he did a fantastic job leading this movie, and I really, it was interesting to hear Kevin Costner voice Enzo, which is very sweet. I had Ford versus Ferrari, a little lower, and you have Enzo in here, so 2 racing movies. And by the way, the racing in this movie is not as good as Ford vs. Ferrari, obviously, but it actually was pretty good for a PG movie that I'm sure the budget wasn't that high. So I really give a lot of props to this movie, and like I said, if you haven't seen it, check it out. It is very sweet, heartwarming, funny, and fun. All right, so now we're in my top 3 of 2019. I want you to take a second to pause. Comment below what you predict my top 3 is going to be, because at this point there are some movies, and particularly 1 or 2 movies that I haven't mentioned yet that I'm assuming you assume is in there. So I'm curious to see what your predictions for my top 3 are, and also the order, 1, 2, and 3, 3, 2, 1, however you want to go about it. But at number 3, I have Joker. Joaquin Phoenix just killed it. I love the Joker. He's just somebody that I relate to. Don't mess with him. Don't bring him down. In this movie, he's actually really trying hard to be a good son, to be a good worker, to be a comedian. He's not good at it, but he's really trying to work at it, and he doesn't really have very bad intentions until he's put in a crappy situation, and it gets to a point where the evil really just starts to come out of him. And the way that they portrayed that in this movie is just really sweet. But I also like that Robert De Niro's character, who ultimately is the driving force to turning Arthur Fleck into the Joker, he's not really a bad guy. He makes fun of him a couple times, and he's not as empathetic for him by the end, but I truly don't think he has terrible intentions. He's not just a straight-up villain of the movie, ironically, whereas Joker is the villain. But with that being said, I truly don't think that any one particular character in this movie is evil in terms of being the roots of causing Arthur Fleck to becoming the Joker. I really think it's just a buildup of moments in his life that just really drives this man to go over the deep end, and at the end of the day, it's one of those where you don't feel sorry for him specifically because he does do evil and crazy stuff in the movie, but you feel sorry for the idea of this person, of Arthur Fleck. You show that, maybe he's not all there in the head. Maybe he's very sympathetic. He's a mama's boy. He's had a lot of bad in his life. It just shows that sometimes you just can't spit on the people that are just lower than you. Similar to, Parasite over there. Disparity of class is not always, you don't always have to just look down on people if they don't have what you have or they're not quite as talented as you or so on and so on. So Joker does a great job. Show all that, and I really think Todd Phillips did a great job, and I can't wait to see him continue his career to be more than just the Hangover director. At number 2, this is going to be my most controversial one, and apparently I'm the only person in America or even the world that likes this movie, let alone loves it, let alone has it at my number 2 of 2019, and that is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. You can't really call me a fanboy because I'm not the biggest Star Wars person, ironically as I'm wearing my Star Wars hat, but I'm not the biggest Star Wars person. I love almost all the Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fan. You're not going to see me at bars doing Star Wars trivia. You're not going to see me on the Schmodown competing for the Star Wars belt. You're not going to see me in the fan leagues raving over Star Wars. It's just, I love Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fanboy. So when I saw this movie, I went in blind. I only watched the very first trailer, the one where you see Rey doing the flip and all that stuff. I avoided all the other ones. I avoided all the TV spots. I tried to avoid some posters. I saw a couple thumbnails from YouTube videos where they talked about, the trailers or whatever. So I saw the one with, Rey and Kylo kind of head to head, so I'm like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. But I avoided that as much as possible. I avoided all theories. I didn't listen to any theories because theories themselves can be spoilers. Because at the end of the day, when you're watching a movie, you go in thinking about those things. So even if you're not confirmed of these theories, they're in your head. So in fact, if any of them come true, you're like, bah, I kind of saw that coming. So I avoided all that. So I had the luxury of going completely blind. I really liked how they handled it. There are aspects of the action of this movie that really reminded me of Rogue One with the grittiness, the way that it handled the lighting, the way that the action went about it, and just the darkness of the reality of war. There's plenty of moments that were like The Force Awakens where, it flashed back to, other movies and kind of how it mirrored the way that the past happened in Star Wars lore, and I really liked that. And it also handled situations that both coincided with The Last Jedi and also reflected on The Last Jedi of different scenarios. And there's a scene in here that I'm not going to spoil, but there's a scene that everyone hated in The Last Jedi that they reversed in Rise of Skywalker that, well, unfortunately, I truly don't think that was a take-back or that was a diss on The Last Jedi. I truly think that it overall developed an arc, and I really think that if you watch these as a whole, you take a step back. If you don't remember, a lot of people were dissing The Force Awakens when that first came out. They're like, oh, it's a New Hope ripoff, blah, 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 and all that stuff. And that is actually why I started my YouTube channel, because I made a video on The Force Awakens, and I talked about, like, just because you have a mirror clone of A New Hope with The Force Awakens, that does not mean it's a ripoff, and it does not mean it's cheap. Sometimes an homage, especially within a franchise, is important. You have all these Rocky movies that have the exact same formula with Rocky, but it doesn't mean it's a ripoff. People love Creed, even though there's a lot of elements that are really similar to Rocky 1, and blah, blah, blah. So at the end of the day, I don't understand what the drama is for The Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, or The Force Awakens. I really enjoy this new trilogy, and The Rise of Skywalker, I'm not sure exactly yet, because now I saw it the second time, and I think it might be below Empire, and it might still be above Force Awakens, just because I think this movie brings out a lot of emotion in me. Alright, so we're here. Number 1, rip off the Band-Aid. It's Endgame. I love this movie. I'm seeing a lot of people acting like they're afraid to talk about Endgame because the hype, it made $2 billion and all this stuff. It's the most highest grossing movie in the world. It can't be my number 1. And I just don't get it. The movie did exactly what you wanted it to do. It's 3 hours long. It flies by. I saw it 4 or 5 times in theater. I've seen it 3 times at home. I've seen it so many times. It's in my top 100 of all time. I love this movie. I don't get why people are acting like it's not cool to say you like Endgame anymore, because everyone was raving for it when it first came out. And now when you see people talking about let's hint at my top 5 of the year, or let's talk about my top 10, and people just seem like afraid to put it in their top 3. You know, I'm seeing it like 5 if it's even brought up, and I just don't get it. This movie's fantastic. There's not much I can say about this movie that's going to add to anything that's been said about it. You know exactly how the movie goes. Everyone's seen it, clearly. It's the highest grossing movie of all time. So Avengers Endgame from the MCU is my number 1 of all time, and that is my top 10 of 2019, my first movie related list in a long time, my first video in a while about movies. So if you can, drop a comment below and let me know how you guys thought I did of this list. Go ahead and drop your list below. I'm going to leave a link to my letterbox. It'll be my entire list of 82 movies that I ranked from 2019. And let me know if I'm crazy for loving The Rise of Skywalker. All the comments and all the hits that I can get on this video is going to help me. So if you guys just want to, you know, trash me, that's, you know, I appreciate that. Give me some dislikes. I don't care. There's no such bad thing as a bad reaction. So give me all the hits you can give me, and I'll appreciate that. So my name is Henry Confidential. 2019 is officially over. Time to move on to 22. Happy the new decade. Thank you very much.